Nicholson. I'm 22 years old. I have a 2009 BMW 335 from Charlotte, North Carolina, but I currently reside in, I'm gonna save the slogan, but Duval County, Jacksonville. What brought me into the car scene? I mean, I think it's been a lot of things over the years, for sure. I grew up, looking back on it, I grew up in, I say I'm from Charlotte, just like y'all say you're from Jacksonville, but the reality of it is we're not from downtown. So I grew up in the sticks outside of Charlotte, Monroe, North Carolina, 28110, out in the sticks with a lot of lifted Chevys and shit like that. But my neighbor, Papa Bob, had this old school bus that he used to always go to the NASCAR races with. And my parents would never let me go, and I never heard any of the stories until I got a little bit older. But now, from what I understand, he was an old man that really enjoyed his alcohol, and I guess as you can see, it has rubbed off. So I would say that was probably the first thing got me kind of interested in NASCAR. And from there, it just kind of sprouted, and depending on who I was around and what kind of cars were around, I guess that kind of determined what I was interested in. But I would say what got me started was definitely Papa Bob and the old race bus that he used to park in the middle of Charlotte Motor Speedway. What car brought me into the scene? I would have to say my Mazda RX-7 was the first car. It was my first car, but it was the car that brought me into the car scene for sure. Started to like learn about, I read a lot of Super Street and stuff and saw a few guys driving Mazdas, and my neighbor had one that he had been hiding in his garage, and I pried it out of his hands because his wife was sick of it taking up dust in the garage. And from that break-in and just being around a lot of different people, I guess I kind of decided that I like to mess around with cars, and now we're here, I guess. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a build because this car was never supposed to be a build. Lord knows what it'll progress into because things tend to snowball, but as of right now, the vehicle that I'm building, or as I like to say, driving, is a 2009 335. I picked it up when I sold my track car, and then my daily blew up the day after. So my whole plan of trying to be responsible and stack some money kind of foiled, and ended up in a dealership signing a bunch of papers I probably shouldn't have signed, but now we're here. It's been a good car. I'd say debatably the best car I've ever owned. One car I would go all out on, I think I would have to say the E46 M3. There's a lot of other cars that I like, a lot of other engines and platforms that I like, but I think as far as a chassis that I think would be really fun and balanced to really be able to, I mean, you can do anything with those cars. I would say that if I had to pick a couple, like, I would probably build it for like a multi, like drifting and like road course type cars. But they're fun cars, man. You can kind of put anything into them, from a LS to the S54 that comes in them, or I think if it had to be a dream build though, the S65 V8 from the E90 335i with like a sequential, a hydro e-brake, caged, and really, really loud, and preferably shoots a bunch of flames out of it. I'd say that'd be a safe bet I'd be content with. Best builds right now. Well, I will say I've been slacking on my Speed Hunters. Speed Hunters, shameless plug. That's like the best outlet for automotive media, whether you're into drag racing, NASCAR, drifting, whatever. I say Speed Hunters is the best way to really get a good look at everything. So I've been slacking on it, but I'll keep it stance related since that's all I've really been interested in recently. Adam LZ's S15 he's building looks really dope, so I'll put him as like a 3.5 because I don't really know what that's gonna turn into yet. Steve BRZ's BRZ is dope as dope as hell. Let's see what else. Jarrett Brock's E30, the S54 E30, that's a really, really dope car. I know he's not doing a whole lot with it right now. I know he's got like a 911 he's building and stuff, but that's really cool. And then the Guichi Motors, is that how you say it? Guichi Motors, the Pistachio, the RX-7. You know what I'm talking about, the Pistachio RX-7? I wouldn't have put an LS in it. That's my personal preference, but the dude's super duper clean with everything he does. I've looked at a lot of his work. Super duper impressive. The car, I've seen it on 2 or 3 occasions now, and it's absolutely beautiful. So I know that he's, from what I understand, he's just starting to get a lot of the kinks worked out of it, but that's a really cool car for sure. I think that's like about as good as it gets as far as quality goes that I've seen recently. But there's a lot of stuff out there. This is really just talking about a lot of the guys in the Southeast. I mean, if you were to go worldwide, I mean, it's really hard to put even a top 10 on anything. Oh man. All right, so, and I'll say I'm probably guilty of both of these on both sides of the spectrum. To some, I know everybody is, but do love everybody else until they don't deserve it. I definitely think there are some people out in the car game that don't deserve love and don't deserve support, but that's mostly because they don't give it back. But I mean, support everything. I think that, you know, my first car coming from a Mazda, which is an unreliable, cheap piece of crap that consistently breaks, and you really, like, nobody that's messing with like RX-7s, like, there's very few people that do that cleanly. So going from that to like BMW, where it's a bunch of 40-year-olds with a lot more money than you, and like you put camber on your 3 Series and they grill you. Like, if you've never been on Bimmer forums, I don't even care if you don't own a BMW. Just go take a picture of a stance BMW and say, check out my new build. And I promise you will have suicidal thoughts by the end of the day. But I would say do support everybody and support their builds, even if it's not your taste. Do go outside the box, because stuff gets boring and nobody likes going to the car shows and seeing the same old things. So definitely do explore your limits and do what makes you happy, even if it's not everybody else's taste, because ultimately cars are about expressing yourself, and I know that a lot of people find happiness and solace and building what they want to build. So do that. Don't. Oh man. Once again, I'm guilty of some of these. Don't be an internet troll. That's ultimately not good for that's ultimately not good for the car scene, which kind of goes back to supporting everybody. But don't be an internet troll. Don't be that guy at the meet. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Don't be that guy at the meet. Don't be the guy who drives a TSX into Week Fest and clips somebody's RX-7 and drives off. That's also a don't. All right, let's start this by saying I don't live with my parents, and I haven't for a very long time, so I'm finally allowed to tell this story, and if my mom does find out about it, really nothing happens. Which also, I guess this can kind of, I don't know if this would be a question or not, but how I got into BMWs, which is my brand of choice. So my mom, when I was 12 years old, bought a 1.8 or 1.9 liter inline 4 Z3 with a 5-speed manual, made maybe 140 horsepower with a cheetah print tan interior. Shout out my man Bash. And she went out of town, and this is right about the time that I started to really figure out that I was going to start to play with cars. I hadn't gotten my first car yet, but it was about the time that I realized that I really enjoyed messing around with them, and this is about the time that a lot of drifting coverage came out on the internet, and so I spent a lot of my nights playing Forza and watching OMG drift videos and stuff like that. And so, of course, looking at my mom's car with tire shine all over it, so I knew the tires were slick and everything else, and I always had the idea of going to slide it, but my mom used to let me wash it. And so I would wash it. This is also how I got into detailing, is because my mom would pay me to do this. And then about the time I was 14 or 15, started to, feel like, all right, well, I want to drive stick now. So I taught myself how to drive stick in my mom's car. My dad and my mom went out of town on a Thursday or Friday evening, and they left after work. So it was about 4 or 5 o'clock. And I was like, Mom, hey, while you're gone, drop the keys, and I'll make sure that when you get back, the car's clean. It'll be great. You can come back to a clean car. And I don't think she was stupid, but I don't think she really knew what she was getting herself into at that point. So I washed the car. Oh, let me rephrase that. About 10 minutes after they left, I took the keys, and this is my first real maiden voyage on the road, and went and drove it around, got a little sideways on some corners, pulled back in the garage, and I was so hands shaking, so much adrenaline, having a bunch of fun. And I sat in the garage for 5 minutes, and I was like forget this, I'm going out again. And I went out, and they had just paved this brand new roundabout at my house, or down the street from my house. And it was a really odd roundabout because it was on country roads, but they were used for like chicken farmers. So it was designed for 18-wheelers, and it had these big runoffs, or like 4 or 5 foot sections of concrete in the center. So like if you could put your front tire up on them and like be okay, but they had these kind of like median dividers that were like triangles. And so I went around it and like, you know, went around it the first time, understeered a bunch, went around it again, understeered again, went around it, ass end finally came out, spun all the way out, and I'm laughing like a little girl. And so I backed the car up and go at it again, and I felt like a hero because the next time I kicked it out, it held, and I just started like pedaling it. I probably went around like 1.5 times. And then at this point, like I'm DK. I'm seeing Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift scenes in my head. And I'm like, all right, nah, we're about to stunt right now. And as soon as I clutch kicked it the next time, ass end came way out, and I smacked one of the medians, control arm folded, wheel bent. As soon as I hit it, I didn't like drive it at all, but I just heard like fucking tire, the air starts coming out of the tire, and I knew it was bad, so I called my buddies immediately, got the car back to the house. Next day, I woke up and got on Copart or, you know, whatever it was, and started checking to see where any Z3s were around me. Sure enough, there was 2 Z3s. One of them was wrecked, but the wheel was perfectly intact with a tire on it, the same wheel and tire that my mom had on her car. And then the other one, the wheels were off of it, but the whole control arm and rear subframe assembly was all good. So Frankenstein, I got a control arm and an axle from one car, and then I got the wheel and tire from another car. And the rim that I got didn't have a center cap in it, but didn't really have time to deal with that. So I took it back to the house. Obviously, it's the weekend, so all auto parts stores are closed. But somehow I managed to get all the tools and everything I needed to get it done. And I finished it. I finished the car and dropped it down. I think it was like 20 or 30 minutes before my parents got home. And I didn't drive it, I didn't align it, I didn't do anything. So I'm sure the alignment was terrible on it, and if I remember correctly, she had to go get the car aligned later. But she drove it, never asked me about it, never said anything. She didn't even ask me like if I had driven the car, like just being an investigative parent. But she, to this day, still doesn't know. But mom, I guess, was that's the best story I got with my parents. So I can't do anything about it now, but I hid that story for probably 4 or 5 years while I was still around North Carolina and, you know, in and out of my parents' house, whatever it was. But nah, they don't know about that. So mom, sorry about that. If you ever watch this video, sorry about that. Oh.